Warzone Pacific Season 2 has just gone live and I'm going to run you through all the updates. Now this is a pretty hefty set of patch notes. They've added new gameplay features, a new vehicle, new locations, new modes, quality of life updates, and a whole raft of weapon balancing. So we're definitely going to see some new metas come to the foreground in the near future. There's going to be a season-long event called Search and Deploy. The source of the Nebula 5 production has been identified. Operators may infiltrate at their own risk, meaning there's going to be new bunkers and things like this that you can explore. There's also going to be a new Caldera Clash game mode. I'll get into that in a second. New explorable points of interest, including the chemical factory and various underground chemical weapon research labs. Enemy AI threats defending the new points of interest, which is definitely going to be an interesting new mechanic added to the game. New gameplay elements included the portable decontamination station and Nebula 5 rounds, and much more to come. Caldera Clash, I'm not going to get into too much detail, but it's basically a team deathmatch of up to 48 operators in one team with their custom loadouts and can have any weapon from any of the games that's in Warzone. They're also adding Rebirth Iron Trials to Rebirth Islands, which is definitely going to add a really interesting change of pace to the game mode. This is going live on March the 3rd. They're going to also add Caldera Resurgence, which is basically taking the respawn method from Rebirth Island into Caldera, which is going to really up the pace and hopefully bring a much more high octane, high action game style to Caldera, and this goes live on March the 23rd. Now they've made a vast load of changes to Vanguard Royale. Now please note, these don't count towards the standard Battle Royale mode, just for Vanguard Royale. So the first loadout drop has been expedited from the start of the second circle to when the first circle begins to close. There is no longer stun grenades allowed. Thermites are allowed now though, and the duration of the fire cell has been reduced. They've made some loot changes as well, meaning that dead silence has been removed from ground loot, so have stun grenades. They've added thermites and UAVs to ground loot, and they've rebalanced the economy in general, meaning basically they've sort of reduced the piles of cash in certain areas and added it to other areas. They've also rebalanced the ground loot. You can no longer also buy UAVs from the buy station, but they are available as contract rewards upon certain contracts. And again, just note, this is for Vanguard Royale only. Now moving over to the map. They've added Chemical Factory. Now some buildings used to be here, but they've really expanded on it. It's a similar layout to what was previously there, but with several notable differences, including enemy soldiers that will protect the facility. These aren't actual players, these are AIs, so it's definitely going to be a really interesting change to Warzone, which might mean you're stopped from initially dropping there in the first place. They've also added underground chemical weapon research labs. There are 7 in total of these, and they have been distributed around Caldera and are visible via a hand-drawn yellow circle on the TAC map. These locations hold high-value loadout items such as gas masks and Nebula 5 rounds. It's also worth noting they've increased the amount of weapon XP that you gain in Warzone, so it's going to be really useful for those people that don't own multiplayer. Custom Vanguard weapons can be now saved as custom mod in loadouts, meaning you don't have to recreate your favorite attachments every single time you want to add it to a new loadout. The 5 default loadouts have been updated to Vanguard weapons, and the amount of cash players are gathering through loot has been decreased overall as well. Now moving on to gameplay, so the new features. They've added a redeploy balloon. These enable players to reposition themselves tactically to traverse new areas. These can be destroyed or repaired for a minor fee, and apparently you don't want to be flying your plane straight into them, as it sounds like they're probably going to blow them up. Now moving on to the NPC defensive threats. These new AI units can be found at various new locations, including the guard towers that surround the new chemical factory and underground labs. Portable decontamination stations have been added to the game. Stations create a bubble of breathable air when in the gas that lasts 13 seconds. These can be mounted to a vehicle for new gameplay strategies, but will reveal your position on the map, so use wisely. The new Nebula 5 rounds have been added. This new ammunition gives players the ability to kill enemies and leave behind a small gas cloud that can be used with any weapon type for multiple interesting combinations. Armored convoys are going to be added in season. Patrolling Caldera, armored transport trucks will represent new mobile loot cache opportunities and are shown on the TAC map when active. Nebula 5 bombs will be added in season. One of the rarest items in Warzone. This is a locked briefcase full of deadly gas with an explosive charge. This bomb will detonate after a fixed countdown and cannot be disarmed or destroyed in initial explosion. Its initial explosion deals a high amount of damage in a small radius before the gas spreads outward, where it will hurt any operator without a gas mask, as gas lingers for 2 minutes before ultimately dispersing or feeding into oncoming circle collapse. Now this could be really useful for people that just are camping a building, because you can just use this to force them out because you're going to put gas there for 2 minutes. So this is going to be an absolute game changer and could be really, really interesting for endgame. They've added the new vehicle, or the bomber plane. This takes to the sky in an ultimate new armored squad vehicle. Weapons that spawn across Caldera have been adjusted. This includes the ground loot, supply box loot, and contract rewards. Dead Silence is now classified as a legendary orange loot, which is a big thing because Dead Silence, I think, should just be removed, but they're obviously intent on not removing it, so just making it extremely rare is a lot better. And lastly, the final circle in Battle Royale modes is now much less likely to end on Caldera's peak. And just general gameplay adjustments. Aim assist while stunned on controller will now scale appropriately and will not cause unintended increased amounts of aim assist strength, meaning if you're on controller and you get stunned, you're going to notice a little bit less aim assist. Armor plating will now prioritize refilling one full plate of armor before filling partially damaged plates. This was done in Cold War and it was a great armor system. So they finally added it to this, meaning if you've got like a smidge of your armor missing and one whole one missing, it's just going to put a whole plate in and then leave you with that one smidge at the end. So it's going to be a really useful update. With the Ascenders, players can now exit with the jump button. Gas masks will no longer be auto-equipped when aiming down sights. Whilst the gas mask will still deplete in ADS, the animation will no longer interrupt and will wait for the player to go back to hip firing before equipping. Players will take damage as normal while they are in ADS without their gas masks equipped. Gas canisters have just been kind of nerfed overall, but you can throw them through windows now and they won't get blown up by a stun grenade, and you're just far less likely to pick them up now. In the Gulag, footsteps of spectators are far less audible, and they're going to improve this throughout the season as well. They've also increased the mantle height, so this basically means you can sort of roam around the map a lot easier, get up those rocks that you couldn't beforehand, just overall quality of life things. With the parachutes, you now go the same speed forwards as it is going sideways. No more floating sideways to gain a little bit of a further glide from the initial plane drop. You can also pull at lower vertical heights, and you can pull it sooner after jumping out the initial plane. And also, you can cut it a lot closer to the ground. Now, they've done a raft of vehicle adjustments. In general, sort of they've changed the collisions on it because they were just a little bit off for a lot of the ground vehicles. The fighter plane has been nerfed overall, with its health being reduced, weapon damage being reduced, and now they're no longer auto-targeting skydiving players, and the collision has been adjusted to alleviate instant death in some circumstances. Anti-aircraft guns have been buffed in the fact that their damage range has been increased, and their overheating has sort of been nerfed a little bit, meaning it's just a little bit more difficult to overheat the gun. The utility truck has improved speed, handling, and able to climb steeper inclines, as well as the squad transport. And there's various UI changes as well, but nothing too notable. They've also made a whole raft of bug changes. I'm going to just scroll through that now, but I'm not going to read through every single one because otherwise we'll be here for a very long time. But they've done a lot, which is good. They've added 2 new weapons to Warzone, the KG M40, which is an assault rifle, which is basically a very accurate assault rifle, and the Whiteley, which is an LMG, which is a heavy long-range machine gun, cumbersome but consistent. They have also made a whole raft of weapon adjustments. Nerfed the assault rifle Alpha, nerfed the C58, nerfed the Volkssturmgewehr, buffed the Klauser handgun, buffed the machine pistol, and buffed the top brake pistol. They've also nerfed the DP27, that's the dinner plate. They've nerfed the LMG Charlie, and they've adjusted the recoil behavior for the M1 Garand. They've sort of rebalanced the free line and buffed the Gorenko anti-tank rifle, but nerfed the Kar 98K on its base stats. Type 99 has been buffed, the submachine gun Charlie has been nerfed, Type 100 has been rebalanced, and the well gun has been nerfed. Now, they've also made some massive ammunition changes in the fact that they've nerfed the incendiary rounds, which means there's going to be less damage output. They've also heavily nerfed the lengthened ammunition type so that the bullet velocity has only increased by 10% as opposed to 30%. And now they've made a whole ton of changes to various attachments. I believe this is just the barrels right now it's going through for the Vanguard weapons. So I'm going to slowly scroll through that now, and you could just pause it to read certain sections as there's a lot to go through, but it's not something you want me to sit here and list off. And now moving over to the magazine changes. Again, there's a lot of changes, so I'm just going to scroll through and you can pause to read it. Now I'm going to go through the muzzle changes as there aren't that many. For the Mercury silencer, recoil control has been increased by 5%. No longer increases vertical recoil control though, and now increases the bullet velocity by 10%. The MX silencer has had its ADS speed decreased by 5%, down from 4%. The horizontal recoil control has been increased by 3%. It also now increases bullet velocity by 10%. Vertical recoil control has been increased by 5%. So it sounds like the MX silencer is now going to be the one to go to. And for the top brake, the T1 flash hider has had some recoil balances too. For the optics, the Kar 98K's median telescopic sight has been nerfed. The Type 99 has had that changed too. The various optics have been changed just to change various things, but nothing too notable. You can see the changes to the rear grips now. You can see the changes to the stocks on screen now. And you can see the changes to the underbarrel too. And here you can see the operators they've added: Anna Drake, Thomas Bolt, and Gustavo dos Santos. And unfortunately, we're looking at about a 10 to 15 gig download size.